Hello everyone, this is Craig Chamber with Precision Electric. We are your industrial service center. Anything from drives to motors to automation, we can pretty much take care of you. So just give us a call anytime. Today's video is another episode of our training on the SM Vector variable frequency drive. And we will be covering the advanced speed control methods. Now in our previous videos, we've done basic speed control. In other words, we can start and stop our drive from here, but we can also control the speed from the keypad. Another basic speed control method would be the speed potentiometer. We've got a different video dedicated just to that. The advanced speed control includes what I would say is like preset speeds or external references that may come from another device you have on your system, whether that's a network or just an analog signal. So let's go ahead and get started. As always, we start in the manual. And I reference this in every video, and the only thing we ask if you call for support, because all of our products include support, is that you at least familiarize yourself and have attempted to do some of the configurations yourself with the manual. And the parameter we're going to be looking at for this is parameter 101, which is your standard reference source. Now the reason they call it your standard reference source is it's because it's going to be the speed that it looks at when you're not using any pre-programmed speeds. You're going to see an example of that later in this video. But essentially, my standard reference source is what the drive will look at when it's not being told to look somewhere else. So it's like the default. It's the fallback speed. So if you're not doing some fancy selector speed or a preset speed or a network speed, and all those speed choices are shut off, it's going to fall back to this standard speed. So for our video, we're going to keep it at the keypad. So that's our fallback speed. So look at the keypad. We're telling the drive, look at the keypad for your speed if I'm not using external speed. But you can actually also set that for 0 to 10 volts DC, which could be a speed pot, but that could also be an external reference from a sensor. Maybe you have a flow sensor or a flow switch. Maybe it's a PLC output, 0 to 10 volts. Same thing applies for option number 2, which is 4 to 20 milliamps. You may have a milliamp signal, which is a current-based signal, instead of a voltage-based signal. In general, those are the two primary signal types. It's either a small DC signal, which could be -10 to +10 DC, or 0 to 10 DC, or it's a small current signal. Those are the normal industry standard, if you will, for speed references. The other option is you can have a fallback be your preset speeds, so you can have a preset speed that it always falls back to. It gives you 3 different options for that. And the final option would be network. Now that is a very advanced topic as far as networking is concerned. If you're trying to get a drive on a network, each network has its specific configuration. And if you've done industrial controls with networking, you understand that, whether you're using Profibus or DeviceNet or Ethernet, each one has a very specific way in which it needs to be configured for it to run. But you can set this up for network for your speed reference. So you can send a speed command over whatever your network of choice is. Now, by default, the SM Vector doesn't come with a communications module, but it does support 6 to 7, I believe it supports 6 different communications, industry standard communications, such as DeviceNet, Ethernet IP, and the like. So that's parameter 101. That's our fallback speed. So the next part I'm going to get into is the reason I'm kind of thinking about it, but the next part I'm getting into is just the preset speeds, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up this drive to not just run off of that fallback speed, but I'm going to set it to run off of a selected speed first, and then we're always going to fall back to our keypad speed. Now let me turn my speed up to 10 just for starting out. And I'm going to issue a start command. So this is my basic speed. Okay, so this is going to be my fallback speed, which is 10 hertz. Now let me show you how I wired my digital inputs here, because I'm going to program terminals 13A and 13B for different preset speeds. Okay, so my common, as we've discussed in previous videos, is terminal 4. Now we need to switch terminal 4 to 13A for one of our programmable speed inputs, and we're going to program it here in a little bit. And then we're going to switch terminal 4 to terminal 13B for our second speed select. I'm going to set these up just for preset speeds, but you can technically set it up for any of the programmable speeds in the manual for parameters 121 and 122. But if you want to see an example of this print and how I have it wired, right now I've actually got 4 wired to a selector switch, And on the other side of that selector switch, it actually comes into 13A, so that's going to be my first preset speed. And then I've got 4 wired to a different selector switch on a normally open contact. And the other side of that second selector switch is going to go to 13B. So that way I can turn on and off those preset speeds anytime I want. You can see a sample of that kind of diagram in section 3.2.3 of the manual. And it does show it in dotted form, but you can see it right on there that I'm just basically taking 4 to 13A and 4 to 13B. Now to program those preset speeds, I'm going to press my menu button, and I'm going to go up to parameter 121. And this is my 13A setup. And I'm going to set it for 3, which is basically preset speed. And what that tells the drive is if this 13A is on, then look at our preset speed number 1. So I'm going to press enter and select 3. Next, I'm going to go up to parameter 122, and I'm going to also put that at 3. And the reason we're setting both of these to the same is because I'm programming 13A and 13B both for preset speeds. Now there is a chart on the manual that shows different ways you can configure these inputs for different preset speeds, since they all have different states. In other words, if A is on and B is not, then that's one state. If B is on and A is not, that's another state. If both A and B are on, that's a third state. So that's technically 3 different preset speed options we have. If you want to see that chart, that's actually in the description or the notes section of parameter 131. So if I look at my manual on 131, hopefully you guys can see this pretty well. I actually am going to program preset speed number 1 for 13A. So I need to go to parameter 131 and set my preset speed 1 to whatever speed I want to run when 13A is on. So let me go ahead and go to 131. And I want it to go 20 hertz. So when 13A is on, it's going to go 20 hertz. Next, I'm going to go to 132. And I'm going to set that to 40 hertz. 132 is for 13B. So when 13B is on by itself, I'm going to go 40 hertz. The third option I'm going to do on this chart is actually preset speed number 4, and that's if both A and B are on at the same time. So if I have both selector switches turned on, then I can actually have a third speed, just using 2 different inputs. So I'm going to go to 134, and I'm actually going to set that to 60. So if both 13A and 13B are on, we're going to go 60 hertz. Now, in the manual, you're not limited to just these preset speeds, as I said before. No matter what happens, if I turn off all of these options on these programmable inputs, if 13A, 13B, and 13C are off, remember, it's always going to fall back to that default speed we talked about at the beginning of the video, which is the keypad in my case. But I can program 13A for a network speed. I could program 13B for a preset speed. I could program 13C for the speed pot. I could program that for 0 to 10 volts. So essentially you can program these for any preset speed you want or any kind of speed setup you want, and as long as you close 4 to that input, then it will actually select that speed. And once you shut off all those, it'll fall back to that default. So let me show you an example of our preset speeds in action. The way I set this up was I set up my first selector switch here for preset speed 1. I set up my second selector switch for preset speed 2. And I set up if both of them are turned on for my preset speed 3. So this selector switch is wired to 13A. This one's to 13B. And so if both of them are on, both 13A and B are on, just like we had discussed in the video. So if I turn selector switch 1 on, my 4 to 13A is closed, and my preset speed for 13A, which I set to 20, turns on. As you may have seen or heard, it did speed up to 20 hertz. You can actually see it right on the screen too. It's actually reflecting my preset speed. Now, if I turn that back off, it falls back to that default setting we set at the beginning. So I can actually default back to my keypad speed, which I can turn up and down. If I turn on 13B, it kicks on to 40 hertz, which was my second preset speed that I programmed. And again, if I turn that off, it falls back to my preset, or my default, I'm sorry, it falls back to my default speed, which was parameter 101. Now I also set up a third preset speed if both of these are on. which was 60 Hertz. So now 13A and 13B are both closed, and it goes to my 60 Hertz preset. And at any point in time, I can turn off an input, and it'll correspondingly go to whatever that preset speed was at the time. Or I could turn them all off and go to the keypad. One important thing for me to note here is if I have it in preset speed control and I attempt to adjust the speed, it's going to show error on the screen. And that's because right now it's looking at the preset speeds and it's telling you, no, you can't adjust the preset speeds with the keypad because we are in preset speed control right now. Only way I can get back to keypad control, in my case, is to go back to the fallback, and then I can actually turn it up and down with the keypad. So that's pretty much all there is to this video. As always, remember, you can program these inputs. You could have a three-way selector switch. That way you don't need two different selector switches. As long as you have it set up so that your 13A, B, and C correspond with whatever your speed setup is, it'll work fine. And you don't have to use preset speeds. You could have this switch turn on, look at my network for the speed. You could have this switch turn on, look at my speed pot for my speed. You don't have to use the preset speeds. That's just the easiest for the demonstration. So that's all there is to this video. If you have any other questions, as always, swing by our website, precision-elect.com. We are your industrial service center. We do everything: drives, motors, automation, panels, you name it. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks.